live to start. There we go. All right, welcome everyone. This is another awesome night of the Investors Performance Group. We've got some amazing speakers for you guys here tonight, so we are excited. If you guys are joining us live, if you can throw in the chat, just make sure you guys can hear me. So just drop a 111 in the chat if you guys can hear me. And once we do that, we will get things rolling. Let's see. Do we have any 111s? Can you guys hear me? Just give me some sort of a signal. I want to make sure this is working. Can you go onto your YouTube and just confirm? Oh, there we go. We got some 111s. There we go. Perfect. Great, guys. Well, welcome everyone. We are excited for you guys coming out, joining us on this, frigid February. It's kind of been cold for February, I find. Like normally we have this weather in January. It's kind of like we start to heat up, starts to get close to spring, but things are definitely heating up in the market. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about some exciting opportunities for you guys to get involved in investing as well. And we've got some great speakers joining you, including James and Kyle. Kyle's going to be joining us live in a little bit. But to get things kicked off and rolling, we always have some technical. There we go. We are, of course, the Kelly Fry team. So we are a full-service real estate investment-focused team helping you guys build your portfolios, build your wealth through real estate. We have access to all the vendor partners that you need to be successful, from accountants to lawyers to home inspectors to contractors, to help you guys get yourselves into whatever strategy you're looking to do to build your wealth in real estate. And tonight we are super excited for our sponsor, which is Lightwell Homes tonight. They are sponsoring all this great food and drink for you guys. So quick round of applause for them. And you guys are going to be hearing from James a little later today on what Lightwell Homes is doing to really meet where the market's at right now and figure out that missing middle part and still yield some amazing returns when everyone's going to different markets these days. So here's our agenda today. First, we're going to talk about what's going on in the market. Everyone's favorite question, although normally Rayner's here, and the first thing he does is walks in and says, "How's the market?" I say, "Don't ruin it for the event." He's not here today, so we don't get that question. We're going to go through another segment of Tales from the Trenches. We are in season 9 already. This is episode 2. And then we're going to bring up our keynote speaker, James Livingstone from Lightwell Homes. We've got Kyle, who's going to be joining us digitally today, giving us a little bit of an update of what's happening with the mortgage side of things, what we can expect, what possibly could happen if these Trump tariffs do come through. And then, of course, we've got some hot deals for you guys, and we'll let you go for the day. And, of course, we love engagement. So if you guys feel free to take photos, videos, post it to your social media, and tag the team at Kelly Fry Team on Facebook and Instagram. All right, let's talk about it. What's going on in the market today? And I would say things are heating up a little bit. We are seeing a little bit of activity, but at the same token, we are starting to see that a lot of sellers are also getting very active in the market. So we're going to watch what's going on in January. Now, it's still very early in the year, and we're heading into that spring market. So we're going to first kind of break it down. Now, of course, from the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, growing inventory and stable prices could lead to opportunities for buyers. Now, we all are investors here. Investors typically buy. Not a lot of times they sell unless there's a reason to. So that means if there's opportunities for buyers, we need to start thinking strategically in the market where those opportunities are, how we can identify them, and how we can take advantage. And I hope through Tales from the Trenches, I'll be able to show you a strategy you guys can take advantage of as well. All right, total inventory. Now, here's one that I saw a lot of people talking about was as we head, like we're going through the back end of the year last year, we saw inventory coming down, and a lot of people started posting online, being like, inventory is coming down, it's going to create bidding wars, it's going to create this, that, and the other. And I always said, listen, that's just seasonality. We're heading into Christmas. A lot of people are going to take their homes off the market if they don't need to sell. And sure enough, as we hit the new year, this is January, we've already seen the inventory start to come back up. I anticipate as we head through that spring market, you're going to watch that trend line continue to rise up. Because the number one question I'm getting a lot right now from sellers is, when's a good time to sell? I say, well, I would get it on in January, February, because if you wait till March, April, May, you're going to think like everyone else who says, I'm going to wait till the spring market, and you're going to see a flood of inventory. There's going to be a lot of competing for the buyer's eyes. So if you do have a property to sell, make sure you get it up before the spring market or wait till after the spring market when people get discouraged and take their listings off the market because they flooded the market. Because the next indicator we look at as what's going on is sales. Now, we saw sales are continuing in Greater Vancouver and Fraser Valley to trend downwards. So now we're starting to gather more inventory. Sales are still going down. What does that create? Starts with a B and ends in Ayers market. Buyer's market. So it creates a buyer's market, right? When we have less sales happening and we have lots of inventory, our sales to active ratio is going to be lower, which means we're going to be in buyer's market territory. That is where investors thrive, because that's where you can negotiate. That's where you can get good deals out there and find the motivated sellers who need to get out of their properties and really take advantage of the market as is. And then again, all of that correlates into the effect on pricing. And as we've seen here, pricing has been coming down a little bit throughout the back end of the year. We are still fairly on par with where we were at last year this time around. So we haven't seen prices really like we saw. Spring did pick up a little bit. It was kind of a moderately busy spring last year. Then it came down, even though rates started coming down. But wait a second. I thought rates coming down meant prices are going to go back up. Well, the thing is, as rates came down, we saw a lot of sellers say, oh, now's the time to sell because there's going to be more buyers. They thought the same thing. When you have a flood of inventory, buyers have too much choice. They kind of get a little nervous because they say, oh, well, we're seeing prices come down. I don't want to buy. And then prices continue to go down. So we are seeing that effect on prices right now. And I anticipate we'll see probably that stable line throughout the beginning of this year as we see inventory continue to rise. We'll have to see what happens with rates. We'll hear from Kyle in a little bit, and he'll let us know what his predictions are. Okay, breaking down some sub-markets. So that is obviously the overall markets. We're going to go and start out in Chilliwack. We're going to move out west. We have seen a little bit of a difference in different parts of it. We've got detached townhouses, condos. Detached is actually up a little bit in Chilliwack. Again, it's kind of in line with what we saw. Prices were kind of stable. There wasn't a big change overall. We have seen an increase in listings, but things are selling a little faster than they were last year in the Chilliwack detached market. Townhouses took a little bit of a hit, almost 12% down right now, but there's only 57 listings in the townhouse market right now. There's not a lot of townhouses available out there. So when it says 58% increase, there's still not a lot of choice out there, right? And it's taking a little longer. It's almost 2 months right now to sell a townhouse in Chilliwack. Condo market is up. And the reason why this number, I feel, has jumped quite a bit is due to the new development. There was a lot of old product in Chilliwack, and suddenly we had a couple of new buildings that closed. They're selling for higher prices. So when those prices hit MLS, it does drag the average up. So you have to kind of look in that micro market when you're looking at what's the age. If you're buying something that's a 1970s property, it's not going to be priced obviously the same as a 2025, right? So keep that in mind. That's why I think we're seeing a little bit of a boost in the condo market there. Listings are up by 32% to 82, and it's taking a little longer as well to sell in Chilliwack. Abbotsford, moving a little further west here. Actually, we saw some growth in Abbotsford. Average detached home sitting at 1.325 million. Listings are up 27%. So we could see this number kind of start to go down a little bit. Might not see as much growth if that inventory continues to rise. And it is taking longer to sell a detached house, almost 2 months. Townhouses pretty stable. Condos pretty stable. Inventory up in both of those, and days on market are going up. It's taking longer to sell. Now, one thing to keep in mind as well when we look at this, why days on market is an important indicator as well for us as investors is because the longer a property sits on the market, the better chance there is for you to potentially negotiate, right? We say days on market is the enemy of a home's value. So if that's the case, maybe that seller is a little more motivated when they realize they didn't sell in the first 2 weeks. They're now 100 and something days. I got one of those scenarios right now. We sent a low ball stink bid in today because we're like, hey, they've been on the market a while. Maybe they're motivated to sell. And we'll see what happens, right? Mission market, we're up. It's still crazy to me that Mission's $1.225 million as an average house. I remember selling Mission 10 years ago for $360 and thinking that was expensive back then. Up on the listings, we are down slightly on the listings. Now the Mission market, again, you'll see the attached market is very small, right? So these numbers fluctuate a lot when we do these things every single month. We are starting to see more inventory. There's more builders, more developers coming in and adding more townhouses, adding more condos, which is increasing the overall inventory. 2 years ago when I would do this, Condos would be like 3 listings. So that's up quite a bit. But again, there's still not a lot. So it's definitely a detached market in Mission. Langley averages just under 1.8 million. We're up 26% on the total listings. The condo and townhouse market, I will say, has been moving. We've got quite a few listings in the Langley market, especially in the condo market, and we are getting activity. We just had one listing hit the market. Literally, what was it, Diane? We had that one go live on Wednesday last week. We had the open houses. Now we have an accepted contract firm already sold. So that one went quick. We have a couple that are taking a little longer, so it depends on pricing. There is still a huge jump in inventory because there's been so much development in the Langley market. You'll go to certain areas, like let's say Langley City as an example. You know, what's coming to Langley City soon? Future SkyTrain. We are seeing a lot of developers come that way. We've seen the first ever 2 towers be developed in Langley. When you drive down 200 now, you got these 2 monoliths. We're like, where did that come from, right? We're going to see more towers coming. Willoughby Heights is not Willoughby. Is it Willoughby? Yes, Willoughby, I think, is getting a couple towers near the mall there. So it's kind of interesting what's happening in Langley. Definitely some area to watch. Maple Ridge, pretty stable. Townhouses up slightly. Inventory up, same kind of scenario. Houses are moving a little faster. They've come down a little bit, and condos over there. Listings are actually down in the condo market. And partly the reason why is because we know we controlled a lot of the inventory on a couple of developments that closed. So that took away like 20, 30 units that were on assignment, and only a handful of them put back up on the market. Surrey, it's actually had a decent increase in the price over last year on townhouses and detached, and the condo market's pretty stable. And then we move over to Vancouver East. I know that's where you guys play a lot, so you get to see some of the numbers here. I'm sure you track it very closely, but we've seen it pretty stable overall. Condos have taken the biggest hit in the last year-over-year numbers. Inventory is up overall. But still not bad in terms of how quick it is to sell something. Condos will still sell in just over a month right now. So again, pretty stable market, but we're going to watch what happens when it comes to interest rates over the next year here, as well as lots of wild cards. I talked about it on my 2025 prediction. There's some wild cards out there, and Trump's already been causing some stirs. And who would have thought that we'd have a party election or whatever you call it? There's so much stuff going on in 2025. So some opportunities can be created through chaos. So let's keep an eye on that. Now, speaking about opportunities as well as chaos, that leads us into our next segment, which is Tales from the Trenches. Now, for those of you who are watching or joining us for the first time, Tales from the Trenches was a segment that we designed to show the other side of real estate, right? When you go to most seminars that are trying to teach you about how to invest, it's, you're going to make so much money and you're going to live on a beach and, sip margaritas and landlording is so awesome. And then you buy that first property and then that first tenant phone call comes in and you're like, oh, what do you mean it's 2:00 in the morning and the toilet's plugged, right? So this is what we're showing is what could happen as investors. So you can either, one, learn how to completely avoid it by doing the right things. A lot of times it's tenant related. Today we're not tenant related, it's market related. Or if it does happen to you, how do you mitigate it so you can lessen the impact on your investment portfolio? There are things that are unavoidable when you own property. A good example that I had not too long ago was a flood, right? We talked about that one at a previous event. So that's the kind of stuff. So today we're talking about the market and distress. So what happens when you get into a property as an investment and then the market changes on you? And we're going to show some unfortunate case studies that some investors have had and how it creates an opportunity for those of you in the room who are watching this on the sideline. So first and foremost, pre-sale assignments are going crazy right now. There are a ton of pre-sale assignments on the market, people trying to get out of condo projects that they bought between 2 to 5 years ago, right? 2 years is typically the low rise and 5 years are the towers. The reasons why people are trying to get out: interest rates have changed. When they invested 2 to 5 years ago, rates were like 1.5%. Sometimes you saw advertising for 0.9%. Like, it's crazy. So they got into the market and they're like, yes, I've got this great buy and I'm going to buy this thing and rates are going to be super low. And then what happened? Rates went up. The economy changed, right? The economy has definitely changed out there right now. Many buyers can no longer complete on their purchases for various reasons. A couple of the case studies we're going to show is some life situations that happen, right? And then many buyers are not even able to assign their contracts, and many developers are restricting these assignments as well. So it's creating a lot of chaos for the people who bought assignments. Now, one thing I always tell all of my investors when you're getting into a pre-construction assignment, number one strategy is to close, right? Be prepared to buy this unit. If you bought these units with the purpose of flipping them for a profit, you don't know what's going to happen 2 years from now. So if that was your goal, you are bound by what's going to happen in the market. And sometimes you took the gamble, you speculated, and you lost. And in some cases, that's what happened here. So always be prepared to close and hold. If you hold on long-term in the Lower Mainland, you'll always do very, very well. But long-term means past the 2-year mark for sure. So distress equals opportunity. For investors with cash on the sidelines, there's some really good opportunities with these assignments, and you'll see why. First one, this is a case study. It's a pre-sale studio. This was located at the Edge 3 in Maple Ridge. This was back in December 2024, so pretty recent. Client faced an illness. So that's that life scenario we talked about. They had the intention to buy this, and then suddenly they're losing work because they're sick, all these things. They can't qualify for the mortgage and could not complete. Now, she actually bought 2 of these units. And she would have had no problem qualifying, but life happens, right? It's a small 512 square foot studio unit. Here is a quick walkthrough that Kelly did of the unit, so you can see it. Nice finishings. The developer does very well with these units. Honestly, if Airbnbs were still allowed, it would make a great little Airbnb. And that was actually, I think, part of what her plan was too. So here's how the numbers break down. Her original contract price was $350,900. It ended up selling for $340,000, so about $10,900 less than what she had originally paid. So here's how it breaks down. The shortfall on the sale price was $10,000. She still had to pay an assignment fee. Now, luckily, with a lot of what the projects we get, we negotiate those fees down from about 3% to $1,000, right? Just kind of a service fee to do the assignment. She had some legal fees of about $7,000. We reduced our listing commission to just cover some of our administrative support, just to help her get out of it. So that was about $3,100. We'd still make sure we pay the buyer's agent, because they're not going to bring their buyers if they're not going to get compensated, right? We have to rely, especially here in BC with limited dual agency issues, we have to make sure we compensate those agents if they bring that buyer. So the total loss incurred on her original deposit of $35,000 was $22,000. So she actually, out of $35,000, retained $12,000. So this is a case of someone having to basically fire sale it to get out. But where does the opportunity get created then for someone else in this situation? Buyer profile. The buyer who bought this property was a 40-year-old single male first-time home buyer. Their mom sold a house in Vancouver. She paid cash, and the deal closed 4 days later. So it was a really fast deal. Thank God for cash. And we actually did have 2 offers on this once the price was priced right. So the last sale in this is where the opportunity comes in. The last sale in this complex was $398,000. So, and that's within a short period of time. So prices hadn't dropped that far. It was just that there was some motivation because she couldn't close. It was getting too close to the wire. So the assignee's price, there's an actual gain, money on the buy of around $58,000 in equity that buyer actually got by buying this property and closing on the unit. So they're probably laughing all the way back. Now, I have seen units in these areas starting to sell for slightly over $400,000 resale now. So there's some good equity that got gained by being in a position to help somebody else out. Because really, if we think about it, we're actually helping her, right? Because if not, she would have lost 100% of that deposit. And with the way things work with BC right now, there's a chance she could have been sued if that developer sold for less and the deposit didn't cover it. So she got out of it. She made a little bit of her deposit back, so it wasn't a total loss, and she moved on. This is her second property. Very similar unit. Numbers look very similar. This one she paid a little bit more. So you can see her actual cash retained was $6,000, and her loss was about $29,000 on this one. It did sell for a little bit less because, you know, we had 2 on the market. 1 sold. Next one, we just had to get it gone, so she didn't have the problem of non-completion. This was a single male from Vancouver planning to bring his mom and their sibling from China to move in. They were first-time buyer. They closed on the purchase December 27th. That should say 2024, actually, because we're not in the future. Developer waived the extension fee because we actually closed this thing after the closing date in which the developer had set. And we were able to negotiate them waiving the $200 penalty per day. So That was a nice little savings for her because that would have wiped her out completely on this one. So again, in this case, the buyer picked something up with $65,000 in equity on the buy. Okay, here's another case study. This is actually also in Maple Ridge. This is the Podium. This seller paid $498,400 and sold it for $465,000. So well below. So client loss of $33,000. This was another scenario where units were selling for higher and they probably could have broke even, but it was getting so close to the wire that the seller literally says, I need out of this thing. I cannot have this stress. He picked the price, and as soon as we dropped the price, the thing went because it was such a good deal out there. Again, we had the low assignment fees and legal, reduced list fee, buyer's agent commission. So the total cash retained was $78,000. This was a 15% deposit. So they actually put 74 into this. They lost $46,000 on this. And again, you can see here the contract price versus the assignee. There was an actual gain because most of them were selling for just around the 500. This one sold under. So a gain of $33,000 on the buy. This is a current de-stress deal. This is not any of our clients, but we do know of this one because we have been emailed this probably 3 times a day for the last several days. I'm just kidding, but we know who's trying to sell this one. They're emailing us a lot. Nice property. It's got AC, 2 parking spaces, lounge and flooring, storage. Originally marketed at $700, they've now dropped it to $635. This is actually a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit. Their original purchase price was $606 and their deposit is $60,000. Now they'll still probably break even on this one at this price, but I know this development because I've got some clients in this one as well. It is getting within a month right now of completion. So that $635 could be getting a little bit more motivated. They might take less than that now. So keep that in mind. So contract price minus the deposit, estimated commission, estimated real estate commissions $20,000. Assignment fee, they have to pay 1%, okay, because they didn't have as good a negotiating with the developer as we did. So they pay 1%. Their legal and lowest price to clear costs is $572,000. Closing date is approaching, and so $575 might be possible that they might take on this. So there's some real good, solid potential equity there. Here's another one. This one's in Surrey. So this one's a 1-bedroom. Client and spouse both lost their jobs in the last 2 years. They had great paying jobs. They've got a portfolio of properties. They don't want to liquidate other properties just to close on this one when they've got other stuff that's cash flowing. It doesn't make any sense. So they're trying to get out of this one. They're unable to close on the purchase. Currently marketed at $429. Their contract price was $459, and their deposit was $41,590. And that is the case study. So there's opportunities right now for assignments. So if you're thinking, where can I get a good deal right now? Because there's people that are motivated. Look into the assignment market if you do invest in condos, because you can get some really good opportunities. And what we're finding is while Airbnb might be out, midterm rentals are really picking up a lot of speed right now. So you could still, mitigate any cash flow losses as a regular rental by doing midterm rentals. Now, I did a video on my podcast. It's getting harder to sell. Where I actually break down a lot of the restrictions that we are experiencing as agents and why it's causing a lot of these clients to struggle. 1, we talk about the market, why it's difficult on the market. 2, the developer restrictions. I have not seen in my career some of the restrictions that have been laid on me as a realtor from the developers that don't let me get this out to the broader audience, right? So I talk a little bit about that. And of course, those of us investors out there who have the opportunity, we talk about the sharks in the water, that they're the only hope right now. So you can scan that, go check it out on the Matting Up on Real Estate podcast. That's the most recent video I did. And that is Tales from the Trenches for this month. So good chaos, creating opportunity. So while it's kind of scary, it also is kind of exciting if you have the right strategy in place. So again, don't forget, post any photos that you guys have, tag us at Kelly Fry Team. We're going to go into our first keynote speaker of the night, James Livingstone. James is the managing partner of Lightwell Developments. His expertise in mergers, acquisition, capital investments drives Lightwell's mission to reshape Vancouver's urban landscape, strengthening their focus on multiplexes and townhomes. I had the opportunity to meet James really briefly at a Christmas party, and then through just connections over time, we've reconnected here, had a great conversation. We align a lot on what they're doing right now. And I think there's some really good opportunity for investors with what he's showing that you can accomplish in Vancouver as an investment. So ladies and gentlemen, bring it over to James Livingstone. I'm going to turn that on and wire you up, and I'm going to hand you that, so that one will advance your slides. And welcome to our stage.
Great, I learned a lot. That's a very good presentation.
Thank you.
So just a little bit about me. Way back, I was a chartered accountant, CPA. I was a partner in an accounting firm. My focus was corporate finance, so really helping my clients buy businesses, help them finance them, build business plans, strategy. I left that to buy companies. So I spent over a decade as an investor, raising capital and purchasing businesses between 20 and 60 million. And that was right across Canada. I had a lot in Ontario, but I was pretty much in every province. I had a business in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, Ontario, and then US and in England. And really what I learned about that, about business and investing from private equity, I've transferred to real estate. And ultimately I learned a few kind of key principles. Principle number one is people, the value of people. My very first investment was a home run. We bought it in Maple Ridge, moved it to Poco actually, did very well. And my second investment in Alberta, I lost all my money. And the difference was people. And it took me a while to figure it out, but success in investing is still, it's all people driven, and real estate is no different. So when you're looking at investing, you also want to look at the management teams behind them. Second is competitive advantage. Every time we buy a business, we're buying mature businesses, and these were companies such as data services, building product manufacturing, industrial services. They've been around a long time, mature markets. So for us to do well, we had to really have a barrier. We had to have competitive advantage. And so I don't really think like a developer. I think like a private equity person. So when I was looking to get into real estate in Vancouver, I was looking at an area I could have a competitive advantage in. Could I have an advantage in towers? No. There's Bosa Properties, many others who have been building towers for a long time. Mid-rise, not much of an advantage there either. So we picked, initially it was going to be duplex, and then City of Vancouver introduced multiplex. And we figured we could have competitive advantage. And I'll show you how I've built that. So tonight what I'm going to do is show you how the zoning changes have created opportunity. But it's like anything, there's going to be winners and losers, and it really comes down to the management team as well as how we build competitive advantage. So we have currently 14 developments, 13 in Vancouver, 1 outside Vancouver, 11 on the west side, 2 on the east side. So when I wanted to get into this, I knew I had to have help. What I had figured out in private equity is that the quality of my management team dictated my investment return. So what I'd be doing is raising money from investors, investing it, and my success is really based on how gritty is my management team, how smart, how capable, how committed. And that's no different here. So the first person I needed was Randy Chang. Randy has 18 years construction experience, 8 years building duplexes and townhomes and single family homes. Before I found Randy, I spoke with 10 other groups, and they were quoting me $400 to $450 a foot. Randy just finished a side-by-side duplex on the east side for $265 all in. And what was interesting, they listed it on a Thursday. They had 20 groups come in on the Saturday, Sunday. Monday was a holiday, and they had 4 offers each side on the Tuesday sold. Bang. And so it's high quality, and he has a low cost. So that's kind of the beauty. So when I talk about competitive advantage, we have that advantage. We have high quality homes, but our costs are low, so we can sell them for less. And that's what the market needs. Ultimately, in real estate, you're looking at what problem you're trying to solve. So I think a lot of developers just try to solve their own problem, which is how do I make money in development? But the real problem is affordability, isn't it? And it's affordability for families typically, and to a degree downsiders, but really it's families who can't afford a single family home. What are their options? And so that's really our mission, is to drive down the cost and to place them in the right neighborhoods where there's this massive price gap. The other partners I have is Jonathan Ames. He worked 5 years for a developer and has been focused on land development, land assembly, last 5 years. So he handles all our land acquisitions. We work together. And then Eric Wong. Eric is a serial entrepreneur, tech entrepreneur. He built up a cybersecurity business and sold that about 8 years ago. After that, he started investing in townhome development. So he has a lot of experience in real estate. And he's our, I call him our quality control person. So very focused on what our interior designs and the aesthetic of what we build. So I've got a great team. It's not just me. This is some of our track record, townhomes, side-by-side duplexes. So when multiplex arose, there's uncertainty. It's like everyone they stressed out from past experience trying to get zonings and permitting in Vancouver. I'd hear horror stories such as 3 years to get a renovation done in a house. So no zoning with any of this. Our permitting, it takes between 7 and 9 months once we've made an application. Burnaby's faster, about 4.5 months. These are, as you can see, 481 West 17th, that's in Canby Village. 950 West 57th, we're in construction on that. That's by Churchill High School. So the thinking there, they have an IB program, mini schools, so aimed at families. Same with Laurel. Trafalgar's in Kerrisdale, Granville's in Shaughnessy. 930, we picked that up because the price was good, by Churchill again. West 33rd is in Dunbar. 646, that's Fraserhood area. So I don't know if we're going to call that Mount Pleasant, but Fraser to Canby is a really good pocket. We have a number of projects there. West 26 is in Dunbar. West 22nd is in Arbutus Ridge, and 577 East 20th. That's in that Fraserhood area again. And you can see number of units. It ranges. Most of them are 5 and 6 units. The more density we have, the more money we make. You can see lot size as well. Range. Our smallest one is a standard lot, 4,000, but the bulk of them are over 6,000. So the dynamic, when I look at markets, I need to have an advantage. If we're going to sell homes and solve the problem, how do we compare with what's already being built? So with half duplexes, if you look on the west side is interesting. West of Oak, it was all single family home zoning, other than, say, Kerrisdale had some 1980s condos and co-op housing and rental, but no townhomes west of Oak, none. So if you want to be in Kerrisdale or Dunbar or Arbutus Ridge, Kilchenna, any of those neighborhoods, there's a couple of condos, but nothing for a family really. So half duplexes, the bulk of them are $2.5 million to $3 million, and that's before GST. So we're looking at $2.6 million. It's really most of them. You have 2 floors, so generally 9-foot ceilings. That third floor, and you've likely seen them, it's like a walk-up attic where you have the slope roof. So in my opinion, once multiplex are built, why would you want a duplex? I think multiplex will kill off duplex, unless you really want a garage. The multiplex doesn't have garages. Zoning with half duplex, R1-1 lot. Price per square foot, $1,400 plus. They go up to about $1,800 a foot. But you do get a garage. Density is 0.7. And this is where I think you won't see as many duplex in the future, is at 0.7 as price for land goes up. You just have to sell them for 2.83, 3.2. So the way to think of half duplex perhaps is that it's the next single family home. But why would you want them with a poorly designed third floor? And the reason that third floor is like that, it's free FSR. It's free space. It doesn't really count toward the buildable. So that's why it's done. Townhomes, they range to $1 million to $2.5 million. There's some that are really large, but a lot of them are very narrow. So I don't know if you've been in any townhomes anywhere, but on the west side in particular, there's one where it's 13 feet wide. And a lot of them are 15, 16 feet. There's some that are over 20, but they're kind of luxury. So for families, you're living in a shoebox, really. 1,300 a foot. On some of the lower quality on the west side, you'll find it below because it won't sell otherwise. But the underground garage density is 1.2. Now, the thing about building a townhome as a developer, very expensive. Underground parkade, that's a few $1,000,000. Zoning is a couple of years, so you're going to have a lot of interest. Multiplex. So the price range for those are 1 million to 2.4. That's on the west side. They'd be really similar on the east side, but just you'd get more space. The 1 millions would be the laneways. So you can get a laneway or a unit maybe around the 750 square foot mark. So that would be $1 million. And the 2.4 would be something that's very large on the west side, like 1,800 square feet. So you get full ceiling heights, 10 feet on the bottom, 9 on the second floor, and 9 on the third. And it's full boxes. Wide rooms. Ours are, I think our skinniest one's 20 feet. The bulk are 24 to 26 feet wide. So they feel like homes. With price per square foot, we're 1,200 and up. It says zoning can be quarter. That's wrong. It's any R1-1 lot. Garage, we have carports. We could put garages in, but we lose FSR. So if we got a really large lot that was inexpensive, we could put garages. But generally, we target 1 parking spot in the back per home. About, maybe I think it's 55% of the multiplexes being built have parking spots, but the other 45 don't. So it's going to be interesting to see if people will spend $2 million without a parking spot. And density is 1. You can see, why would you build townhomes at 1.2 when you get 1? It's all slab on grade, no parking garage. And this is examples of what they look like. Multiplex will look similar. The difference is we won't have the funny ceilings. Like there's an example, and I've seen them where it's very sloped, but they're nice. But I think multiplex will be much better. And you can see the price as well: 2.6 for 1,760 square feet, 2.5 million for 1,540 square feet. So they're not inexpensive. Townhomes, there's different types. A lot of them are on Oak Street, 6 lanes of traffic. It's loud, but inside they're very livable, other than if they're skinny. But this is what you're looking at, so it's just more dense. Whereas multiplex will feel like the duplex is more residential. This is an example of one of our funds. So what we do is we will find 2 properties, tie them up, and typically we like to close on the properties later, so we save money on the interest. If we buy them right up front, we have to pay interest. It could be $20,000-$30,000 a month while we wait for permits. But you can see in this case, 2408 West 22nd, we're building 4 homes there, and that's in Arbutus Ridge, and 1314, 6 homes. That's between Granville and Oak on 57th. Profit on it combined, 3.6 million. So you can see each project 1.5 to 2.1 million. So they're profitable, but not every multiplex developer will be this profitable. Again, it's not, we have a focus on driving costs down. I know other developers where their costs are much higher. So our hard costs are lower than a lot. And because our costs are lower, we have higher returns. So return on equity, in this case, between 54% and 64%. It's also important to buy well. If we want to keep our price per foot under $500, unless it's in a really high demand neighborhood. So equity on this, in this case, over 4 million. The debt's 11 million. So as partners, we guarantee the debt, so our investors don't have to. So annualized return is over 30%, 30% or higher. And that's because it's usually an 18 to 20 month hold. So what we like as an investor about multiplex is just short duration. If we look at what's happened the last 4 or 5 years, investing in office buildings was, a very standard way for, pension funds, families to invest. And look what's happened, especially in the United States. 80% decline in value. And is it the investor's fault? No, it's just long term. Eventually, you're going to hit something. So I used to be a long term thinker. With private equity, I'd buy businesses and hold them for the long term. But now with all the chaos in the world and shifting global politics, and you can see what's happening with tariffs now, it just doesn't pay. So I just look for investments that are short, in and out, and multiplex is perfect for that. And we can assess risk quite well, because before we close on a property, it takes about a year to build. We know what the market's like at that point in time. And it takes us about 6 months to pre-sell the first few. And that de-risks us, because that's enough to pay most of the bank debt off. Some of the benefits of multiplex is tax. So in my old life as a CPA, I had to learn tax. And when I first started looking at how to help our investors with the investment, it felt a bit hollow, because what I would say is, hey, we give you a good return, it's a 2-year hold, ta-da, it's good, but what else is there? I wasn't really solving the real problem investors have. And the real problem we have in Canada, in particular in Vancouver and British Columbia, is it's hard to get ahead here. Tax rates are so high, 53.5% when you hit 250,000. And that's not a lot of money if you want to, especially living in Vancouver. You've got to make a lot more. And of course, if you make more, you're paying higher and higher rates of tax. Or, well, what about setting up a corporation and investing in a corp? That could be better. But if you're investing in rental income, if you're investing in interest income, say mortgage investment, GICs, you're taxed at 50%. And there's no integration. So that means, like I have an investor who has about $10 million or so, and he invests in mortgages. So his income is about $1 million a year. He pays $500,000 in tax in the corp. When he pulls that out, he doesn't get credit for the tax he paid. So he'd have to pay another, it probably blends, if that was his only income, to about 40%. He gets to keep a very small part of his overall income on passive income. So passive income, if you probably hold it personally if your income's low, but in a corp, it doesn't pay. What I stumbled on is that real estate development is active business income. So Cameron, you're an agent, you earn active business income because you have to be active. You're spending all day long, meeting customers, listing, selling. It's a lot of work. It's not passive, but you get rewarded for it. And the reward is, well, sort of rewarded. So in a PREC, personal real estate corp, you pay 11% tax on the first $500,000, and then 27% tax after. However, with agents, you're not allowed to keep the money in it. You have to set up a hold co and move money over. So real estate development is one of the very few investments you can make passively where it's active business income. So the partnership shares the first 500,000 taxed at 11%. And after that, it's taxed at 27%. So when you compare tax rates, much better than passive income in a corp. And if someone's already has quite a bit of income personally, it's better by far. Capital gains are a good rate if you pay the 25%, because in a corp you can pull that out tax-free, but it takes usually a long time to build up capital gains. Whereas in this case, under 2 years, active business income, invest, pay a bit of tax, reinvest. So now that's really at Lightwell, our program, which is showing compounding at a higher rate. Stock market averages are 8-9%. Ours are 30, but I'm showing, say, a 20% annual return over the long term. Our customers, we have, there's more than one type of customer, but in Vancouver, what we're seeing, it's usually families looking to move out of the condo. They have a baby on the way, or they have 1 or 2 kids that were small and now they're getting bigger, and they need more space. Condos are too small, and single-family homes are too expensive. The other side, on the downside, side, stairs. They have a big home, 4,000 square feet, say, and they're tired of stairs, looking after the garden. So we're building, in that case, we're building one-level floor plans, and different sizes, anywhere from 1,200 square feet to 1,600 square feet, all one level. So no stairs. We've designed it for aging in place as well. So 4-foot hallways, really good accessibility in all the rooms, and designed as well for things like wheelchairs and walkers later on. We can't market it like that. People don't want to feel old, but that's the whole idea here, is that someone doesn't have to move. As people, we see this all the time. We meet people in different neighborhoods in their 80s, 90s, and they say, I'm just going to live here till I die. And I don't blame them. It's where they've been at a certain point in time. You don't want to move. But I met one homeowner, and his mom was early 90s, and they moved her into a senior's home because of stairs. They were worried that she'd fall down and hurt herself. So if you're living in a home where you don't have that worry, then they can stay. So there's different. One thing's interesting, and I'm going to talk about a couple ideas I have that we haven't implemented yet. Maybe you can give me some feedback. But there's 4 formats really. There's the 2 and 3 levels for families. So there's stairs, and these are 3 and 4 bedrooms, bedroom homes. Then there's a 1-level living for downsizers that I mentioned, and our price for family is at 1.25 to 2.2. If you look at data, say like West Side numbers on townhomes, the bulk of them sell for between 1.25 and 2 million, and so that's where we're focused on the multiplex. There's an Airbnb format. So I've been trying to figure out how to make that work, because as we heard from Cameron, the issue is size. If you have a 1-bedroom, the owner can't live in that and rent it out. Whereas there's no limit on how many bedrooms you put into a home. I could put 8 bedrooms into a multiplex if I chose. So that was my initial thinking. Oh, this is great. I could rent out 8. And then when I looked at regulation, it doesn't allow that. So the first thing with Vancouver, there's a workaround, but it says you're only allowed 1 reservation. So you can live in the home. So my thinking is homeowner lives on the top floor. Well, if you focus on big families, then you could rent out multiple rooms, or sports teams. I remember when I was traveling through the interior, there's always some hockey team in the hotel. But that's the only way you can make it work, would be to rent out a larger multiplex to someone who needs multiple rooms, and it would work. Burnaby, you're allowed 4. You can have 4 separate reservations. So Airbnbs would work in Burnaby, I think. The other is rental. So I looked at doing a rental. You're allowed 8 homes. The problem for me is we're delivering 30% return on multiplex. With the rentals delivering more like 18 to 20%. So it's lower, but for people who do want some cash flow, it did produce 4 to 5% cash. So if people are interested in that does work. It's CMHC financed. So over 5 units, you can get really cheap financing. So those are the kind of 4 formats that are possible. So my thinking on the Airbnb format was the owner lives up top, and I'll show you an example here. I used to travel a lot, and there's Alt Hotel. This is by Pearson Airport in Toronto. I don't know if anyone's been there, but I checked in, and the rooms are quite small. So in this case, you can see that's the actual 1-bedroom. That's probably like 80 square feet. And then there's shared dining downstairs. So that's kind of the idea, I think, that could work if you can get Airbnb to work. This is a typical multiplex floor plan. This is off one of our projects, Unit A. So you can see on the downstairs, this is about 1,665 square feet, the whole unit. But there's living, there's kitchen. On the bottom, this is a Japanese Bavarian type design, so it's called a genkin. It's a mudroom. And then upstairs, there's 3 bedrooms on the middle and one up top, so 4 bedrooms. That's the master room. In terms of what multiplex looks like, this is on Granville and 34th. The architect we use really likes Japanese design. So you can see front, back. These are front, back duplexes. So 1 unit's here, and the entry is around the back for the second, 3 levels. And then in the back are 2 laneways. So laneways have to be 2 floors. The front units are 3 floors. So on West 57th, again, these are 2 duplexes. This is 8,600 square foot lot. So 1, 2, 3. The top is the primary bedroom and bathroom, walk-in closet. 3 bedrooms in the middle, and then the living room, kitchen on the main floor. You can see the laneways. Parking is in the back, 2 levels. Yeah, no shared wall. So they're small houses. So it's interesting. We're just starting to pre-sell our first project. So we're trying to figure. It'll be interesting to see what people buy first. And I can see different buyers would prefer different things. So I always thought the front, the access, the front duplexes would be worth less. But I'm seeing in some cases, in some cultures, they like them because it's perceived that they own the whole house. So they want the front for the perception. Whereas typically the locals like to have a backyard. So they prefer the back. There's a 20-foot common area between the back and the front of the buildings. Whereas these fully detached, like a little house, I think will be attractive for other buyers. This is similar to this, but it's a smaller lot. This is West 17th by Cambie. So Cambie is here, and then this road, West 17th, is blocked off with picnic tables. So it's not flow through. So I think it'll be quite nice. So it's like duplexes again, but a shared wall. So 4-plex. It's on East 23rd. We're getting our actual renderings done, and they look way better than these, but you get an idea. So it's a front back duplex, and that's the laneway. These will be bigger because the comment is it looks like someone could just knock one down and the house falls down, but that is not the case. They're going to actually be bigger than that.
Not little matchsticks.
No, they're not. Yeah. This is our first project with the art. We used architects in the first 3, and then we realized that you don't need an architect because we'd asked, do we have to use an architect? And the response was, well, if you have more than 4 units, you have to use an architect. What they failed to tell us was all the information, which is 4 units in 1 home. So if you're going to do 5 in 1 building, you need an architect. If you're not, you don't need it. So we actually don't need architects. But the architects came up with some really nice designs. And this is in Kerrisdale, so 4-plex, so 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and that's the laneway. Yeah, these are bigger, you can see.
Is that one standard city lot, basically?
This is an 8,000 square foot lot. Yeah. So it's bigger. Standard lots in Vancouver, 4,026 square feet, 33 by 122. This is 50 by, yeah, it's long anyway. This is West 41st here, and then the houses. So this just happens to be another lane, and that allowed us to get more parking on it. Otherwise, we'd only be able to get 2. This little box here is called a pad-mounted transformer. So on homes that are 5 or 6 units, we have to put a PMT in, pad-mounted transformer, about $60,000. Yeah. And the reason we need it is a single family home has amps, about 100 amps. So in this case, we have 5 homes, so we need 500 amps. So typically it's wired for 600.
I was talking to my electrician about, so there's like 100 amp services, 200 amp services. And I'm like, hey, if somebody's got 2 electric lighting F-150s, they're going to need, I think it's 80 amps each. They're going to want 400 amps. He's like, yeah, that requires a sealed electrical room. But he's like, if you just put in 2 200 amp services, it doesn't require a sales.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And we don't have to put PMTs for 4 units. So you could do something like that. I think it's called an LMT. It's just a different version. So that's probably the 200 amps you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's another example on West 33rd. This is near Pacific Spirit Park. It's a modern Tudor type design. So the nice thing about design is focused on the floor plans, and after that you can kind of paste any type of design you want, whether it's West Coast or modern Tudor or just modern.
So again, which are the ones that you say is only one floor?
Oh, sure. Well, I don't have those designs, but this is an example. This is one floor here, one level. So there's 2 homes, one here and the others in behind. These are 1,550 square feet, one level. The ones I'm talking about, which I don't have here, it's one level, and the second home on top is an elevator. So people can get to the top floor with an elevator. So the bottom unit's 1,450 square feet, all one level, 3 bedrooms and a den, and upstairs is 1,600 square feet. And what's really nice is that the elevator goes to a rooftop terrace. That's 450 square feet.
So they are separate units. I mean, you will sell it as a.
That's all strata. This is all strata.
Like strata.
Yeah, it's all strata, which is great. So in this case, there's the PMT again. You can see there in the parking lots. But yeah, these are 2-level townhomes. They're big. These are 1,750 square feet. So each floor is like a 2-bedroom condo. Yeah, it's over 850 square feet. So for families wanting more space, this is perfect. When you look at we have a total of 71 homes in production. 3 of them are bigger. The most are smaller. They're usually between 1,250 and 1,500. But yeah, if we'll have our new development is 1314 West 57th, and what it looks like is a 4-plex, but the 2 units are one level, and then the penthouse level you get is an elevator with a terrace on top. So that's multiplex in Vancouver. So Vancouver has its own charter. SMU, which is what people call it. It's better than SMA, I guess. Small scale multi-unit housing. So this is where the provincial government came out with Bill 44 and said everyone has to do multiplex if you have more than 5,000 people. Most cities were really mad. No one likes being told what to do. And I could see their point of view. They spend a lot of work on their OCPs, their official community plans, and it blows all that up. So I've been meeting with the director of planning in all these cities. Quite interesting to understand when they will be introducing SMU. So like a place like Richmond, there'll be, it's already exists, but it's only 0.6 FSR. So when I talked to them, they only had 10 applications, whereas Burnaby's had over 200. Vancouver had 279. So they are in the spring, though. They're looking at density and the fee structure. So I think Richmond will be changing. We'll be upgrading it. Coquitlam's asked for a 3-year deferred again. So POCO too. Yeah. So they don't want to do it right now. North Shore has introduced it. So District of North Van, West Van, but the economics aren't there. So in the District of North Vancouver, we're only allowed 0.35 lot coverage. So you can do it, you just won't make money. So
That's charity.
yeah, but Burnaby was going this way anyway. It's with 4 plexes. So they pivoted. So Burnaby and Vancouver both are actually supportive. The difference is Burnaby's is quicker. So a friend of mine, he got it done in 4.5 months. He was able to get the permit. With Vancouver, it's based on FSR. In Burnaby, it's all setbacks and lot coverage. So if you want 6 units and you're in what's called an FTN zone, frequent transit network zone, you get 55% of the lot coverage, whereas Vancouver is FSR. FTN, there's a map. If you go to TransLink or just Google FTN map, you'll see all the FTN routes. So if you're within 400 meters of the FTN, then you can build 6 units. Otherwise, it's 4. Pricing's different. So in Vancouver on the west side, it's that 1.3 to 2.2 range. That's what people can afford. That'd be west side. East Vancouver, a bit less. And Burnaby, I think, is in that 1.1 to 1.5. There's some very large duplexes that are built in Burnaby, but it's a limited market. So this is, I think, we'll be able to sell a lot of the infill homes at that height. Lots of choice. Burnaby has more choices than Vancouver in terms of design. Height 37.7 feet, so it's quite a bit higher than what was allowed before. And that's why we have better ceiling heights in our homes compared to, say, a duplex. Yeah, I know. I mean, but at least Burnaby just picked 40. So it's 40 feet. Yeah. No, and that's the thing. It's all based on, they have rules. So you're not allowed a lock-off unit in Vancouver, but you are in Burnaby. So there's pros and cons. There's no FTN requirements in Vancouver, but in Burnaby there is. Parking, no requirement. From our perspective, if someone's going to spend $1.5 million to $2 million, they'll need a parking spot. But we have a couple instances where we don't have one for one of the units, but it'd be, say, a 900 square foot laneway house. So, whereas in Burnaby, you need 0.5 if you're not in the FTN. There's the map. So the orange are the frequent transit networks, and how they define that, it has to have a bus running between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. every 15 minutes. This doesn't count. This is the millennial line. That does not count as FTN. So you're just looking for the orange. My partner Jonathan showed me a link for the Burnaby GIS map, and it'll actually tell you what you can put in Burnaby. So with us, as I mentioned, we have 14 projects, and we're adding more and more. We want to go into different municipalities as well, just to deal with, we can't build everything in Vancouver. There's not enough buyers. Yeah. But generally with our limited partnerships, hold period is 20 months or less. Returns are less than 30, more than 30. So what this is a good alternative to is that pre-sale. So if an investor would normally have $100,000 to put down on a condo, instead they can go into development. The difference is, though, not all developers are the same. So that's where I get back to the team. Yeah. And then the other thing we're doing is co-development. So with co-development, we're working with investors and homeowners on one project. So we'll soon have 5 projects that are co-development. And so how that works is a homeowner might like the idea of development, and they like the idea of earning more money from their home. So instead of just selling it, we'll buy it, but then the homeowner is rolling in some of the home equity. It's usually about half the equity in the house comes into the project. And we're seeing that idea becoming more popular. As you showed before, there's limited upside in say, the pre-sale market. So what do people buy? And there's our contact information.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll open up to questions if anyone has any.
Yeah.
Well, there's mud.
What are people in? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you talk more about I don't think those 8,000 square foot lots are very common. And are you looking for usually 2 lots side by side to get going? Or
James, I'll get you to just repeat the questions as well for the people online.
Sure. The question is, are 8,000 square foot lots common? There's about 3,000 on the west side. So you're right on the east side, not many. There's some, but not many. So if you look at, let's go back to our list. If you look at our lot sizing, it really comes down to neighborhood. So for instance, in Mount Pleasant, there's a lot fewer of them. Most of them are standard lots at 4,026 square feet. But there are some that are in that 5,200 to 6,300 size, maybe 50 of them. But when you get into places like Dunbar, there's parts of Dunbar where they have, I think, 15 square blocks or 20 square blocks, and every lot's 8,700 square feet. So Dunbar, Kerrisdale, Southwest Marine Drive, Shaughnessy, big lots. But when you get past, say, 25th, north of 25th, then they drop to about 6,000 square
We
feet.
can't block you from doing this.
Nope. It's all, it's
20 years ago.
But it's interesting because now the homeowners are thinking, how can I benefit from this now? Yeah. So everyone's realizes, that it's, that bus has moved on. The city is putting in villages, I think a total of 25 villages. They introduced the first 17. So the problem with the west side is there's not many amenities. So there's amenities in Kerrisdale, more and more now in Dunbar, but everywhere else, not much. So they've come up with this village idea where they'll have 2 blocks of, say, 6-story residential with retail on the bottom. And there's, like, for instance, on Mackenzie, I think it's on like 16th, 25th, 33rd, we'll all have these retail zones, but they're scattering them through all the areas that don't have retail and don't have the density. The city's idea, their long-term vision for Vancouver is Tokyo. So what they're seeing is a vision where all of Vancouver is 6 stories, like everything. So that's event. So really, multiplex is the first step. Probably duplexes were the first step to get people used to density. Multiplex a bit more, but now, like on all the arterials, you can build 6-story in what's called secure rental policy. So you're going to see more and more density. Yeah, because we have limited land.
Yeah. We got a question online from Cho. He said, is the investments for accredited investors only?
Yes.
Yes.
Unless you're a friend, family member,
Yeah,
or a close business associate of one of the general partners. Yeah.
And just for anyone who's on who maybe doesn't know what an accredited investor is, what is an accredited investor? How do you become one?
Sure. Yeah. So you can actually, I think it's the same in Canada. If you take the exam, like the Canadian Securities course or the exempt market dealing proficiency course, that's one way to be an accredited, because you have the knowledge. But otherwise, it's $200,000 of gross income, gross taxable income, the last 2 years is the definition, or a household income, say spouses, of $300,000, $1 million net worth, financial net worth, but your home can't be included in that, or $5 million of just any asset.
Yeah. All right. And then, so for all these are accredited, is there any plans for anyone to eventually get into like letting RSPs or anything like that? Do you have plans to kind of expand that to increase your investor pool?
Eventually, because the issue, and I've done this before in my last business, but the issue to become registered, I need to have 150 investors put in registered money. And so that works best once you've been around a while.
Yeah.
So we're in year 2 now. So probably by year 4, we'll have enough mass where we can do that.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions in the room? If you're listening online too, drop any more questions you have.
Curious about your trajectory. You said you have something like 70 units under development right now.
Yeah.
And you said you're trying to look to add a few more cities.
Yeah.
So you can see yourself doubling the size of this in a couple of years from now, or?
Yeah, much larger. So the general idea in the United States, I have a company called D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton is the largest home builder in North America, really, but we'll say United States is public. Warren Buffett made a big investment a year ago or so, and they're really entry level. They build entry level homes. Their average home sells $400,000. So there's not many developers that get excited building a $400,000 house. But their revenue last year was $35 billion, and their net income in that $4 to $5 billion range. So they're a machine, and very decentralized. So for us, what we're looking to do is something similar, but with infill. So we're starting in Vancouver, but it's just we want to branch out into all the markets as they're available.
Yeah.
I-5, we can go down the states. So Washington State. So Vancouver borrows, from other people. Washington State, state of California, they've all had this before Vancouver. In Washington State, it's called Bill 1110. Rolls right off the tongue. That's infill. Arizona has introduced this. So part of our thinking is really we're here to solve that problem, to either help families get more space in expensive markets or help downsizers have a more livable life with that one level living idea.
Okay, we got another question online here. Do you have EMD?
So yeah, so my last business, I was an exempt market. I had what's called a captive EMD. So I was the UDP. This time around, I'm what's called a controlled general partner. So I don't have to be registered. But we are building out a capital team, and so we will register them on different EMDs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? One that I think would be good to kind of expand a little bit on is just you kind of talked about it lightly, but the partnership with homeowners.
Sure.
So maybe you can kind of go into a little bit more like how it works with the equity, how they roll that in, kind of go into a little bit of a broader explanation. Because if anyone knows anyone that is in that position where they are looking to downsize, that would be a good opportunity for them, especially for their retirement, right? So
yeah, I'll give you a couple of different examples. So one is a Burnaby owner. His home is worth 1.6 million, and he owns, say, I think 4 or 5 other pieces of real estate between Burnaby and Coquitlam. So he's built up a good net worth. He's living in the home now, but he has another house he can move to. And so what he wants to do is earn a higher return than just sitting on land. So if you look at, we've had historically, Vancouver gets these big jumps in land values due to high immigration. So we saw it with mainland China, right, where suddenly you have a lot of wealthy individuals buying a lot of real estate, and that pushed the whole market up. Well, when's that going to happen again? It could down the road, but right now, based on a domestic market, we're seeing what the growth rates are. It's 2 to 3% a year. So as a homeowner, do you want a 2 to 3% return a year, or do you want a 30% return per year? So that's what sold it for them, is much higher return. So how we structure those, the home's worth 1.6. We're waiting for permits. So once we get permits, it doesn't have to be when we have it, but around just before we get the permits, he'll be moving out. And then we would buy the home from him. So in this case, we're closing it at 1.6. Right. And he's investing $1 million of the 1.6. And it's because it's suitable because he has so many other assets. So that's one example. And then it's about a 1-year hold for him. So he can earn a high return in a short amount of time. Right. And if he likes it, then he can keep doing it with us.
Now he becomes a credited investor with the capital he has and can start rolling it back into other projects.
That's right. And he's already a credited investor just based on assets. Another example is a homeowner in East Vancouver. So he had a home in Sunset worth about $2 million, but it's lower dense, it's smaller. So it was say a 4,500 square foot lot. Well, the profit just isn't there on the small lots. In a place like Sunset, they sell for about $950 to $1,000 a foot. Whereas if you're in Mount Pleasant, like I was just looking at a duplex for sale between Cambie and Maine, around 22nd, they're asking $1,510 a foot. And the land's a bit more than Sunset, but not hugely different. So what we're showing the homeowners in some cases is, well, why don't you invest with us somewhere else where the return is higher? So in this case, he sold his home and then he put 1.35 million into the project, and he was accredited as well. Cool. There's there's an example where he sold an asset to have cash. In most other cases, we're buying the home to do that.
Right. Yeah. Cool. And then I just want, if you can, just expand a little bit on the Airbnb concept as well, because I know when we were speaking, I got super excited about this one, because obviously, for those who know our team, we've done a lot of work on the Airbnb side of things, and this whole situation with our government shutting it down basically has made it extremely difficult for investors to leverage this. So I know you've got a concept that you are thinking about.
Yeah.
You haven't started any projects yet,
No.
right? So it's still a concept to try to essentially make Airbnb an opportunity for homeowners to be able to leverage it at a high level, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can kind of go a little deeper into why the project thinking is the way it is.
Yeah. And I got really excited. Actually, this all started in Squamish. I met a developer who was building co-living. So the city had agreed to allow them to have 12 different families live in one big house.
Mhm.
So talk about a cash machine. So I thought, well, can you do that in Vancouver? Well, the law in Vancouver is no more than 3 different households in one home. We used to have boarding homes like 80, 100 years ago, and they stopped it because of immigration. They didn't want, they're more racist back then. They didn't want non-whites living in Shaughnessy. So my idea here initially for Vancouver, I thought, well, this is great. You can have 6 bedrooms and then rent out all 6. And I did the math, and huge cash flow. But what the city's done is said, well, only 1 reservation allowed. So you're allowed, the homeowner can live there, but they can only do 1 reservation at a time. However, the workaround is it doesn't limit how many people can be in that 1 reservation. So that was my thinking in Vancouver. You wouldn't rent it out to a couple, but if it's a large family going on a cruise, why not? They could have 12 people. They need 6 bedrooms. You could do it. So the question, like I haven't figured this part out, is how prevalent is that type of reservation?
Mhm.
Now, it exists, but how much? Pardon me?
Those like 8-bedroom rentals of ski hills are very popular.
Yeah, so there we go. Yeah, so again, that would be an issue. So you'd have to do more market work, but that would work in Vancouver. You would be within the law to do that. And my point here on just design, well, instead of having a massive living room, you could put 2 more bedrooms on the main floor. So you could have 3 or 4 on the middle, and then 2 downstairs. So you could have 6 rooms, plus the owner is living on the top floor. If the owner wanted, he could cut the room even smaller. So this could be, you'd have to figure out the market side, but if you could rent them out, you could make a lot of money.
Mhm.
Now in Burnaby, you can rent out 4. So this works right now in Burnaby. It just comes down to how much can you rent a brand new room in Burnaby. So that would work. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I think we don't have any other questions online, so we will wrap that up.
Great.
If you want to drop your info again, if anyone wants to take the information down.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you. For the back. Oops. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we have a website. It's Lightwell. Well, now Lightwell homes.ca.
Goes out of there.
He also has business cards.
I do have business cards. But online people will have to.
Yeah, everyone online has to take the
in next time.
screenshot or rewatch it. We always like the views extra. All right. Well, again, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Really appreciate you coming out
you.
and sharing all that.
Yeah.
Again, I was meeting with James. We were having a Zoom chat and just watching some of the concepts that James was doing. I was getting excited because I'm like, I love when people look at the Lower Mainland and try to say, okay, well, there's all these restrictions that we're having. How do we leverage these restrictions and find a solution around it, right? And I think that's what there's a lot of what you guys are doing a lot with Lightwell Homes is trying to figure out how to work within the parameters, keep everyone happy, but also realize that Vancouver was still an amazing investment opportunity. There's so much potential still in these cities. And I mean, we were chatting before, and we have both invested in other provinces. And at the end of the day, the foundation of what Greater Vancouver is still holds true regardless of what's happening in the market. You just have to find the right strategy to take advantage of it in the market right now. Now, what we're going to do is Kyle is not on yet. He said he's going to be joining hopefully very soon. So what we're going to do is jump into the hot deal right now, show you one of the hot deals that's on the market, which does tie back into my tales from the trench at this moment. So we'll jump past Kyle here and talk about this, and then hopefully he'll be on in time and we'll get the mortgage update from him. So we have a new listing that just hit the market. This is another assignment. So like I said, ties back into our Tales from the Trench. We just hit the market at $699.9. 2-bedroom and den unit in the Galilea in Surrey. Nice and close to the Surrey Memorial Hospital, easy access to SkyTrains, everything like that. Great development. It's going to be closing June to September this year. That's kind of the range we've been extended on. And what makes it attractive is that there's a lot of units hitting the market that are significantly higher. There's currently one on the market just 2 levels up from us. It's 6 stories. That would be on the 5th floor for $737,000 right now. So we're already undercutting them, right? And that unit actually, they started higher and then we hit the market and they dropped their price. But so we're kind of forcing them down. And part of the reason for this client that we're able to do that is because of our access that we get with our pre-construction side of things. We were first in the development, so we got in at base pricing. Right now, a lot of other buyers are pricing them much higher because they paid more money. So they need more to get out of it. Plus, they don't have the same attractive assignment fees that our clients have. So this client needs to get out. Her situation is that things have changed in their industry they're in. It's been a little harder for them to maintain, so they have to liquidate some assets just to make sure their business stays afloat until their industry picks back up a little bit. So beautiful design. I mean, we've sold a lot of whitetail homes over the years, so we're very familiar with these projects. They just, timeless designs throughout. Good size, this unit. It is, what did I say, 871 square feet. So a 2-bed and den, it's a pretty decent size what's out there in the market right now. I was just doing a ton of showings in Surrey today, and I was looking at a 2-bed and den that was squeezed into 587 square feet. When we looked into it, we're like, I said, you have a girlfriend, right? He goes, yeah. I'm like, so you need probably a queen. He goes, yeah, we're not getting into these bedrooms. Like, that's how tiny some of these units are. So it's a good size at almost 900 square feet, well designed. Again, we've dealt with whitetail a lot over the years. Again, right in the gateway to Surrey Central here. So the project itself, where am I looking here? So King George is right here. You've got KPU. You've got SFU. Did you know that UBC is also going to be developing a site out there? So that's happening. Surrey Memorial Hospital right over here. The site is just down right on this side here. So great location there. So if anyone is interested or knows anyone interested and can help this seller out and pick up a great buy as well, there's an opportunity right there. So that's what we have for a hot deal. And then I'm sure we'll be able to get some of James's inventory and we'll send that out to you guys as well for hot deals in the future so you guys can see what's going on in the Vancouver area. Why don't we do this? Kyle hopefully will come on shortly here. I'm going to send him a text. Let's take just a 2-minute break, refresh your drinks, refresh your food. If you guys are watching online, good time to go grab a bathroom break, grab a refresh of food, and we'll be back in just a minute here. I'm going to shoot him a text, see where he is at. Yeah, dive into the pizza. Yeah, so washrooms, you just go that direction, all the way to the end, and all the way to the right. Okay, thanks guys for tuning in online. Just give us a sec to get our other speaker on. All right. I see Kyle just joined here, so we'll bring him up on stage. All right, guys, I'll get everyone to come and take their seats again. Kyle, welcome, my friend. How you doing? Kyle, can you hear me? Oh, what's going on here? Kyle, can you hear us? We can hear you. Can you hear me? What's going on with my thing here? Why can you not hear me? Can anyone else hear me? Why can't you hear me?
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
There we go. Okay, I can hear you now. Sweet.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have Kyle Green joining us here today. We've got you on the big screen here now so everyone can see you. How was tennis?
Well, I was playing, first it was just training, and then I was playing against Christina. So Christina and I were playing in the couples tournament this weekend for
Excellent.
Valentine's Day, and I want to not suck.
Well, that's probably a good thing to do for sure. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you because we're here to discuss what's going on in mortgage land. You know, it's 2025. We've had a crazy 2024 with rising interest rates and then dropping interest rates. Started out the year with rates coming down, and then we've got all these uncertainties happening now. So we're thinking, like to hear from you. Obviously, we've had you on our stage many, many times, and you've always got great insights, good predictions of what you think might be happening. And with that being said, I mean, I will let you take it away.
Cool. Cool. Is it possible for me to do a screen share and present on this, or should I just talk?
Yeah, you can screen share. So if you just hit the bottom, you'll see share screen.
Yeah.
And we'll take mine off.
Yeah.
Can you make sure he's on the screen, not me?
What? Wait. Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Yes, I am. Okay, cool. All right, let's go screen share. Okay, good. You guys can see that? Okay, you guys can see everything? You guys can see Trump now? All right, let's go through this. I think everybody's wondering what's going on with the tariffs. That's the primary item that everybody wants to talk about. I want to talk about what it means for you and what's happening with interest rates.
All right. Sorry, Kyle. We can see the slides, but we're not on the presentation side.
Hold on. So this is new
tech.
Yeah, I know. So why does it not show the...
Depends which one you selected, I guess, is the window you're sharing. It didn't come up as full screen.
Okay, hold on. I have another idea. Okay, I don't know why it won't show, because when I go to full screen, it just takes over the entire screen, and then I can't now show that. Okay, hold on.
No worries. Even if you do it in the non-presentation mode and just kind of click through it, we can see that too, I guess.
Yeah, one second here. I think I know what to do.
Got it.
That's showing it?
Let me add it to the screen. You're good.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, when I was going into this, it was making it full screen, and I couldn't go back to change it back to this screen. Anyways, we're here. All right, you guys can see Trump, our favorite person. I think everybody's wondering what's going on with the tariffs. That's really the most important and the key topic that everybody's wondering and talking about. So I think the question is, what does this mean for you? The reality is Canada is one of the US's largest trading partner, just behind Mexico. And I found this chart interesting. It's the Canadian industries exposed most to US trade by share of GDP. So oil and gas extraction is by far the largest industry that would be impacted by this. So one of the things that makes me wonder, of course, is if the tariffs come in, how will economies like Edmonton or Saskatchewan, companies that are areas that are exporting a lot of oil and gas, how will those be affected is the primary question that I'm kind of wondering. How the tariffs move through the Canadian economy. I like this slide that RBC put together. We've already gone through the uncertainty shock, and the front loading of inventories has happened too. So knowing that tariffs may come, a lot of companies were front loading it and buying and stockpiling a lot of inventory before the tariffs come into play. Now we're in a position where prices are likely to rise, demand is likely to drop as the tariffs applied. We've already seen some retaliatory measures from Trudeau with new tariffs on the other side. We haven't seen number 5, which is secondary industries or services, experience some knock-on effects, meaning that it wouldn't be necessarily just oil and gas, but for instance, maybe it's Calgary, a white-collar area that provides services to the blue-collar area, so to speak. And then, of course, there's the Bank of Canada response, which is going to be the primary focus of the presentation. And then the fiscal policy that attempts to support the industries that are negatively impacted by all of this. Now, one of the things that I found was interesting is last week I was in Whistler for a conference, and the TD chief economist was mentioning that if there's a 25% tariff, it doesn't mean that full 25% is passed to the consumers. Generally speaking, the amount is truncated, and everybody along the supply chain will eat up a certain amount of the cost. And so realistically, it's expected about 5 to 10% of the increase on the tariffs will actually be passed down to the consumer at the final price level. So for instance, if you're buying a car, there's many different components and many different items that go into the supply chain that affects that. Rates, who knows? We're going to talk a little bit about some predictions on what a lot of the banks are thinking will happen with rates. There may be some government support. So they may find that they may support the industries that are hurting the most. One thing that I wrote down as well from my notes with the chief economist was that Canada is very sensitive to rates. Increasing or lowering rates, we're very sensitive to it because we're very indebted as a country, mostly because our real estate is very expensive. And so inflation may rise, but soon. The timeline that they suggest is that it will take some time before inflation actually comes into effect, likely 6 to 18 months. And unemployment will likely rise, undoubtedly. So that's something to think about. It's too bad because, of course, we're just getting our inflation under control. We're moving in the right direction. But if you look at the chart here, too, you can also see that in the blue, the U.S. is moving in the wrong direction. They've actually been seeing their inflation rise over the last couple of months. And then the unemployment, it's a similar story where, as of 2022, the U.S. is about the same for unemployment as they were at the beginning of 2022. And Canada has seen a bit of a tick up, from its low in early 2022. We're up about 1% on unemployment, and the trend is moving in the wrong direction. So ultimately, we want to understand, what does all this mean for interest rates, and will rates go up or go down? I've had this slide in my presentations for months and months, and generally speaking, the answer continued to be, well, probably flat or going down. Maybe short term, a little bit of a blip, but overall going down. And the question is harder to answer now. This is the 5-year bond yield chart. The reason I'm showing this is because this is how fixed rates are actually priced out and correlated. I'm going to look at the very end here. If you look at this line right here, this is where this guy got elected, and that's where we see a divergence in what's happening in the bond market. So I'll back out a little bit to show you that blue chart. Bonds in the U.S. were about 3.5% about 3 or 4 months ago, and they've risen to almost 4.5%. And so there's a massive increase to the bonds in the U.S. So even though you're seeing weakness in Canada, what happens is the US and Canadian bond markets are very tied together. And the US bond market accelerating and going up for the yields is causing the Canadian bond yields to not drop. Even though the Bank of Canada is dropping rates, it's kind of buoying or creating a floor underneath our rates. So long story short, if there's strength in the US market and the bonds continue to go, the yields go up in the US, that means that we might not see fixed rates go down, even if the Bank of Canada continues to cut interest rates. So again, that's the divide and our best friend Trump. This is what we saw, and this dip here is the day that the tariffs came into effect, or were supposed to come into effect last Monday. And then there's a massive jump up. This is the very same day when, oh, never mind, we're going to grant a 30-day extension. So this blip was about a 0.2% decrease to interest rates, or to the bonds anyways. We may not see all of this being passed down to customers. So ultimately, bond yields going down usually means fixed rates will go down. On the flip side, I pulled aside the chief economist after her talk and asked her, well, what do we likely see with interest rates if we do see a 20 basis point drop with bonds? Does that mean that the rates will also go down by about 0.2%? And she said, well, right now there's more risk being priced into the market for mortgages. People don't want to lend money to people that might not have a job in 6 or 12 months. So we might not see that all of the savings would get passed down. So long story short, the tariffs, we have an idea now of what kind of effect it might have short term on fixed rates. And it might not all be passed down. My guess is maybe a small 0.1% decrease to fixed rates short term. So if we get the crystal ball out and look what's going to happen in the future, this chart is probably the best chart to give everybody an understanding of what people are thinking. So the current policy rate, just to put everything in perspective, policy rate is the Bank of Canada overnight lending rate. The prime rate is 5.2, which is 2.2% higher than all of these. So if you want to know what the prime rate is or predicted prime rate, it's these rates plus 2.2. You can see that in Q1 2025, there's only one more announcement, which is March 12th, so in a couple of weeks, and it's split 50-50, which is exactly what another chart or another group that I follow that's predicting about a 60% chance the Bank of Canada cuts in March. So there's about a 50% chance, let's call it, that they cut once in March. And then it looks like most of them are predicting another cut in Q2 and then potentially another cut in Q3. So if you look at Q3 or Q4, we're seeing about a 0.5% decrease on average. Scotiabank's an outlier and RBC's an outlier. Scotia says no cuts and RBC says we're going to see a full 1% cut by Q3. And most of the others are 2.5 or 2.25. So, it's an interesting kind of outlook here. Now, there is one asterisk, however, and this is right here for BMO. Now, all of these banks didn't really do a prediction for the tariff situation because, frankly, they don't really know. But BMO kind of did. They said this rate is assuming no tariffs. Their estimation if the tariffs hit is 1.5% policy rate. So that would mean that actually the Bank of Canada would be cutting 1.5% in 2025, which is quite substantial. So it's possible that we might see interest rates drop substantially on the Bank of Canada side. Now, one of the reasons that would happen is because if the Bank of Canada cuts rates, it actually devalues our dollar when we lower our interest rates. And what happens is if there's tariffs making our goods more expensive, you can lower the interest rates in Canada, which lowers our dollar, which puts our goods on sale to counteract some of that tariff expense. So that's a tool that the Bank of Canada has at its disposal. The tricky part is you can't combat both inflation and unemployment and whatnot at the same time using the same tool, which is rates. You can't, if you go up, you're helping inflation but hurting unemployment and vice versa. So what we're seeing right now is that fixed rates, short term, so 1 and 2 year fixed rates, and to a lower extent, the 3-year fixed rates have been going down a little bit, the last little bit. However, on the flip side, we're seeing the longer term rates actually are going up a little bit. So 5-year rates, there's actually a little bit of upward pressure. What that's telling us is that the banks and financial traders are actually thinking the Bank of Canada is more likely to cut short term. So short term rates for the next couple of years will be lower, but longer term rates will be a little bit higher than we see right now. And so it's interesting to notice that. And I think that the reason for that is mostly that once the inflation hits the system, they're expecting that maybe rates will be higher in the next couple of years, but short term, we may have to drop to accommodate the tariffs. And on the variable side, it seems like prime's likely to decrease about 0.5%. That's pretty much every economist is predicting that in the next couple of months. And then from there, it's either no more cuts or it's a lot of cuts. So it can go either direction. And we might again see that the Bank of Canada cuts aggressively while the fixed rates don't move very much at all from where they're at today. So the question of should you be in a variable rate is coming up quite a bit. You can see on this chart, the pricing for fixed versus variable has changed quite a bit. And now variables are finally getting priced in at about the same rate as a fixed rate mortgage, which is the first time we've seen in a couple of years now. Variable pricing has been more expensive for quite some time. Also, one of the issues here too is that the discounts off of prime are going the wrong direction. So if you look really far to the right of the chart here, the discounts that you're able to get off of prime are decreasing and getting worse. And that's often something that we see. We saw that in COVID. We saw that in the subprime crisis where variable discounts go from prime minus to even prime plus. Probably won't be that drastic, but the discounts of prime minus 1 are currently not really available. So this is typically what you're seeing for a normal homeowner type of mortgage. There are better rates available depending on the size of the mortgage and other things like that, but a standard interest rate would be around here. So you're noticing the variable rate is about 0.25% higher than the 3-year fixed. That means that if the Bank of Canada does cut twice, then that technically means you'd be saving money and be under. And our analysis is showing us that if you took a variable on a mortgage starting in March, based on those rates, you'd probably save about 16 grand over 3 years, which is pretty significant. So that's what we're seeing right now on the variable rate side. That's all I wanted to go over specifically on the presentation part. If I have time, then I can go over any questions you guys have.
Okay, I'm back. All right, there we go. Okay, yeah, we have questions. Yes.
Yeah, well, maybe you can repeat the question.
Absolutely.
How all of these affects commercial rates? I know this is residential.
Yeah.
But what is happening on the commercial rates?
So I don't know if you caught that, but the question is, what's happening on the commercial? Like, what is your expectation on what's going to happen there?
It's going to be the same impact. We're going to if it's moving in the residential side, it's also going to happen on the commercial side. Commercial financing gets booked or priced slightly different than residential does. Ultimately, I expect that there won't be much of a difference as residential is going up 0.5% or 1%. Commercial will probably move up about the same. There probably won't be a drastic difference in pricing movement comparably. But overall, short term, we may see that the variable pricing gets more competitive and fixed rates might be the same. Now, the reason that it might be a little bit different in commercial is most commercial financing is fixed, not floating. And so if the Bank of Canada is cutting, but the fixed rates in the bond market is not moving, then that might not mean a whole lot for you because typically floating rates on the commercial side are usually a little bit more expensive than fixed.
Okay. Any other questions? Clear as mud.
I know, right? Literally, it's like, who knows is literally the answer that everybody's saying. So it's hard to say. I think really ultimately choosing variable or fixed is going to come down to a personal decision. If you can take the risk, it's projecting that variable will outperform a fixed rate. But I have a lot of first-time home buyers who are like, give me the 5-year. I haven't been selling a lot of 5 years for quite some time. And all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks, a lot of first-time buyers or just risk-adverse people. One of my clients that was an A client a couple of years ago and then had to move to B for life reasons and now is moving back into A. They're like, give us a 5-year. We don't have to think about this again. Like, we don't want to deal with it. So
I know you're an avid investor yourself. I mean, you've been in the investment communities quite a bit. And we've done a lot of work on the pre-construction side. We've talked quite a bit tonight about pre-construction with some of the issues that people are running into, having to sell at losses, everything like that. When it comes to like the pre-sales right now, what are you suggesting people to do and how can they protect themselves from, being able to qualify, get these things closed to avoid situations where they have to sell at a loss or lose their deposit?
Yep. And you can get an approval and a rate hold 18 to 24 months in advance. And in some cases, if the development is approved by the bank, and usually it's the bank that provided funding to the developer to build it, sometimes you can even get longer than that. But 18 months to 24 months is quite commonplace as far as a rate hold and an approval is concerned. So if you're closing in the next 18 or 24 months, I haven't had a lot of people that are closing in that time period bother with it, mostly because they figured, well, if the rates are going down, I'll just wait, which makes sense. But now with the uncertainty, it might make sense to actually say, you know what, I will just get a rate and I'll get it set. What the banks will usually do is they'll have a premium rate that you get, but that's capped. And they'll say, well, as long as you close in 18 months, this is your worst case scenario rate. But then when you go to close, if rates are lower at that time, then you can lower it down and float it down to the current interest rate. So don't feel like you're obligated to take that higher rate, because they'll let you float it down to current market rates at that time.
Okay, awesome. And then let's say someone is they're in a position where it's closing, a month or two, and there's some life circumstances that have changed. What kind of things can you help them with in terms of still being able to get it closed, whether it's private or anything like that? Because sometimes that, even though you're paying more expenses, if you can get it closed and hold on to it, it's better than the alternative. So can you talk about any strategies that you've worked with any buyers in that regards?
Yeah. I mean, private lending is the big one. Private lenders care more about the property and less about the borrower's circumstances. So they're really looking at the collateral and the security. So one of the common strategies in that case is, if you've got enough cash, you just put down enough cash to keep a private lender happy. Generally speaking, at 75% financing, so 25% down, it's tougher. They're going to put a little bit more weight on what's your exit strategy, how are you going to afford the payments, etc. But you start to get down to 65% or less on the financing side, and usually they're quite comfortable just to say, you know what, whatever it is, just close on it and we'll get our money back when you sell. One of the ways of doing that, however, is you don't need to necessarily put more cash into the deal. If you only had 10% on deposit, you can actually inter alia and use other properties as collateral. So if your residence it's worth $1 million and you only have a $300,000 mortgage, even if you don't have a job, they could still give you a mortgage and just stretch it over both properties. And then that way they could still finance you without you having to put more cash into the deal. So this is a really common strategy that we're seeing right now.
Awesome. Yeah, we talked a lot about today, people losing their deposits and not being able to close for various reasons. And I think part of it is that they have to have a really good broker that they're communicating with that's looking at all these alternative strategies, because sometimes while it may be expensive to go the private route, if you can get it closed, the alternative in today's market might be better long-term. You got to do that math and figure it out, because we are seeing situations where developers are, obviously, if they're retaining that deposit, but then they're selling at it even after for the additional. So you got to kind of balance that out and figure out what makes the most sense. So does anyone else have any last minute questions for Kyle before we'll let him go? Nope. All right, awesome. Well, Kyle, again, we always appreciate you coming out, sharing your knowledge here. As with anything, it always comes down to, we're going to have to wait and find out, I guess. But we know that you're going to be in the weeds there, keeping an eye on it for us and keeping us posted on it. So we appreciate it, as always.
100%. Thanks, everyone. See ya.
All right. So I'm going to bring up my last bits of slides here, and then we will let you guys out for the day. Let me see. Let's move this out of the way. And we're going to go share screen, bring this back up. And there we go. All right. Not much else for me to say today. We're going to skip past the hot deal because we've already done that. Again, if you know anyone who's looking for an opportunity to get in under the market value, we've got that there. And we're basically just going to say, flip your phones out. We've got some QR codes that you can scan and follow us to keep up to date with everything that we are doing. First and foremost is our socials here. So you can follow Kelly Fry team on literally everything, thanks to Jury over here, keeping us fully omnipresent on all socials. And of course, if you'd like to watch the replay of today's, let's say something Kyle said about, interest rates, maybe he's like, oh, what did he say? I got to go back to that. Or how did James structure that LP that he's going to be doing on the next project? You can go back and rewatch all of it. And of course, it does help me out if you do hit that subscribe button on the channel as well. Obviously, that allows me to make more great content for you outside of just our lives, but this is where you can catch all of our past episodes as well. And the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast is back. So by popular demand. And actually, we've been really kind of getting into the weeds with these episodes here lately. So you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple, anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Or we're also building the new YouTube channel as well for it. So we're currently only at 60 subscribers, which we're really trying to grow that up, really trying to make that a bigger thing. And our new segment that we have been doing, you get Cameron a little bit more raw. We're calling it Manning Up After Dark. We've done 16 episodes so far. You will hear me literally, for lack of a better word, bitch, moan, and complain about what's happening that you need to know to get around what's going on. Like we talk politics on it, we talk what's going on in the market, we talk strategy, we talk everything to keep you guys up to date. And like I said, it is a little more raw. I do let myself go a little bit more in how I speak, so you guys can enjoy that one. And we are going to be focusing on 2025, bringing in some great interviews back as well. So we're just gearing that back up for our regular Manning Up on Real Estate podcast episodes as well. So you're going to have kind of 2 different segments that we're doing there every single week. And this is going to be something that's fun that we're doing. We'd love to invite you guys out for some bowling on March the 2nd. So it's going to be our first client event of the year. We figured we've been doing so much the last couple of years, but we always have this gap from like January till May. So we thought we'd fill that in and just have a fun day going out and bowling. So we're going to be doing that at Zone Bowling in Coquitlam. It's going to be from 2 to 5:30. So we are limited on lanes, obviously. So we just ask that you RSVP. And so far, we just want to thank our sponsors, Gartner & Harris Lawyers and Svetlana from TD, as well as we just had 2 more people literally sign up today for sponsorship. Thunder Clean, which is a group of cleaners we use, and Silver Spine Construction. So they've just agreed to be sponsors for this event. So love to have you out, have some fun, go bowling, grab some great food, everything like that. So scan and RSVP. And again, you can join our private Facebook group. So this is where there's opportunities for you to be involved with the community, post deals that you're working on. If you're looking to raise capital, post that. I did just see Yuri, I think Yuri's listening in right now, posted that he's looking for a joint venture partner. He's put the deal in the community group. So feel free to check that out. We want more interaction in there. So we really help support each other as investors with that group. I'll wait for you to scan that one. So I don't want to jump before you got it. And then again, you can also join us on meetup.com. Our next meeting is going to be March 20th. So save the dates. You can either get updated from the Facebook group or from meetup.com. Either one, we post both when we're doing these live. And of course, all of our online content. That is basically it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And we hope you guys learned something. And if you've been watching online, thank you for joining us as well from wherever you're joining us from. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.